What a group. You look like you haven't gotten out for quite a while. Put the books away, please. Put the books away. You got to just stick with me for an hour. Welcome to Living Right with Dr. Ray. I'm Dr. Ray Guarendi, and for the next hour, we're going to do our very best to help you live right. We got all kinds of stuff coming up today. Our Living Right cameras are going to go into a home. Very short little clip of a marriage, but you'll get the sense real fast of what's going on. We've got a real child psychologist coming in to replace me. Dr. Mary is going to tell us what's going on. For our role play, you wouldn't think that just asking for a cup of coffee would cause this kind of marriage trouble. We'll see. What else? Father Larry Richards. Father Larry is a favorite here. He's going to talk about how the Catechism views our role as aging parents and our duty towards aging parents. We are delighted with a very special guest. Big guy, 6'4", ex-basketball player at Case Western Reserve, where I went to school. Marcus was there 20, 30 years before I was anyway, but actually, no, he and I are the exact same age, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Marcus Grodi is an EWTN stalwart, a favorite. He's going to be with us, and I got a feeling we got this large audience here because you found out that Marcus was going to be here. I think that's what happened. Why discipline? Why discipline? I'm sure you've discovered this discipline thing is a lot harder than anybody ever prepared you for. I, as a shrink, have developed a technique. It is foolproof. I guarantee it will work with every child, every family, every parent. If you wish to discipline less, there is just simply one thing you can do. Works every time. Lower your standards. There. See? If you get them low enough, you don't have to discipline at all. Now, fortunately, most people don't want to do that. But we feel guilty when we discipline, don't we? Because the shrinks have hammered you for so long that somehow, some way, the children are they're just going to understand what you're doing, Mother. And we don't like the fact that we have to exert our will over their will. I'll give you a thought, I think, that'll help any guilt. You are the kindest, most gentle teacher about life that your child, your grandchild, is ever going to have. Mom, if you don't discipline now, because you feel bad about it, or you're afraid he won't like you, or you don't want to do something psychologically incorrect, or your mother-in-law already thinks you're the biggest she-witch to fly the face of the earth, the discipline will be done. A judge, a landlord, an army sergeant, a police officer, an employer, if we don't do it, they will, and they don't give mitigating circumstances. The world is not about to say, you are so cranky. Now, did you get a nap today? You go home, I will cover as your boss until you're rested up to come back to work. Some judge? Let me see if I got this right. You're the middle child. You have identity problems, and you're left-handed? You tell the prosecutor, he'll throw that right out of court. I oftentimes tell folks, discipline without love may be harsh. Love without discipline is child abuse. We're just delaying it, that's all. Did you ever see an obnoxious little 3-year-old out in public? Do you think to yourself, do you know what that child needs? That child needs loving. I just want to swoop that little one up. Smack that parent. You may think that the first few minutes until the child spits at you. Then what becomes of our charity? My house, kid. 5 minutes. We don't like undisciplined people. Be they 3, be they 33. The world doesn't treat undisciplined people well. And you know what happens with undisciplined people? Okay, maybe they don't get in trouble with the law. And maybe they don't get on drugs or alcohol. But they don't make the best spouses. And we're going to see that with our Living Right cameras right now.
that another time? I said, can you do that another time?
If I don't do it now, it will never get done.
I wish you could get your act together well enough to get this finished during the day.
You are so out of touch. You have no idea what my day is like. Why don't we just trade places?
Fine.
Fine.
It was short, but it made the point, didn't it? In marriage counseling, one of the first questions I ask my clients, do you like your spouse? There was a line in a movie once where a fellow was talking about his wife and he said this, I don't like the way she licks postage stamps. Their relationship had deteriorated so badly that there was nothing she could do. You saw that here. There was nothing the woman could do that in any way he had tolerance for. In a marriage, sometimes as a last resort, I ask this of my clients. Do you want your spouse to change? I'm going to give you the best technique to do that. It's very simple. It's foolproof. It works totally. Change yourself. Unless you live with Satan or Satan's spouse, most people will respond to kinder treatment. Now, you look like you have some questions here. As we move to the audience questions, we have someone that would have a question about the stuff of life, not necessarily just marriage. Sir, your name, sir?
Ted Johnson.
Hi, Ted.
Hi. I've often wondered why, as Christians, we punish ourselves so much, even though we know we're loved and forgiven by Jesus, and why we keep looking back at the past instead of going forward and living the good life and the calm life that we're supposed to be living.
Why, as Christians, do we punish ourselves and we don't forgive ourselves as we believe intellectually God will? Well, Ted, there's a simple answer to that. Because you and I are not as loving as God. We don't understand that kind of forgiveness. So we think God thinks like us. I can't forgive me. Look at what I did. I'll never get over this. Well, God says, Ted, it's a good thing I'm not like you, because I forgive you. When we don't forgive ourselves, when our church and God says, I've forgiven you, and we don't, what we're basically saying is, hey, God, look, I'm kind of setting the terms on forgiveness here, all right? Now, I understand that you're all merciful, and I appreciate that, and it's good that you do that to these other people. But I got to tell you, my conditions here, I can't forgive me. Ted, intellectually, you got to realize and believe, he says, I forgive you. It's not a feeling, Ted. You don't have to feel forgiven to be forgiven. Other thoughts? Yes, ma'am. Your name, please.
Jennifer Marion Petrie.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi. This is actually on behalf of my 2-year-old, Giovanni.
Did he write this question out for you?
In more ways than one.
Oh, he's pretty well behaved there.
Yeah,
he's ripping up our studio, but...
He's a very good boy. He wants to know how he can kick Mommy and Daddy out of his king-size bed.
He has a king-size bed, does he? King-size bed? Well, God is a practical joker. God wired life backwards. What is something that we as adults all want to do and we don't ever get enough of? Sleep and eat. Now, little Giovanni over there is going to have to live with the realization someday that he had a chance to sleep and eat as much as he wanted, and he let it slip by. Mom is basically saying, how does Giovanni kick us out of his bed? Meaning we've let Giovanni in our bed. It's easy to do. Bedtime bad times is one of the top preschool problems. You want to go cold turkey, Mom? Can you do it, or will your guilt not let you? See, there's the difference. I can give you all kinds of techniques, but if you say to yourself, oh, I don't know if I could, he'll cry.
I'm ready for the cold.
You're ready for the cold turkey. It gets to you, doesn't it? Put him in his bed. Put him in his room. He'll go crazy. He'll cry. He won't like this because he's got a new bed. And it's a lot smaller than yours. And what you sometimes have to do with a guy this size, if you want to do this, you put him to bed before you guys go to bed, obviously. Get him up, stand him in the corner. Giovanni, you're going to stand in the corner until you're ready to go to bed. Not going to argue with you anymore. When you're good and tired, when you see him wobbling, you pick him up and you put him in his bed. Okay? I would do that. You're going to have to set the tone. But see, he's trying to grab the microphone because he realizes, what kind of question is this? I run things around here. What else do we have? Sir.
Hi, Michael Weaver. I was
Michael.
wondering if it's okay, to monitor my daughter's use of the internet, kind of like a Browns fan watching a rare offensive display by Cleveland.
Yeah, if you were a Browns fan watching the internet, you wouldn't really be able to see much there. How old is your daughter?
I have a 14-year-old and a 17-year-old.
And how long are they on the computer a day?
Well, one of them attends what they call a digital academy, so she can
So
be
she can
on
scoot
for an
off.
hour at a time. A lot of times at night she'll need to be on for an hour, and the older daughter uses it through school. They use computers quite a bit in school now, so she'll be on for an hour at a time.
So what you're saying there, Michael, is that I'm not sure I trust the kids, and this is not saying they're bad kids.
No.
I'm not sure I trust the kids to stay where they're supposed to stay without veering off into some other site.
Exactly.
Do you have screening mechanisms on this?
Oh, not to that extent that I can keep them from going on to email and Facebook and some other things.
Well, here's what I would suggest. And by the way, if you look at the stats, most parents of adolescents do not have screening devices on their computer. They do not. So what I would suggest is you get somebody who knows computers really well, maybe a 7-year-old, 8-year-old. Get them to come to your place, get them to essentially set that up so they can't go anywhere else. No way. This way you don't have to step over them like this and make sure they're staying at the school site they're supposed to stay at. Okay, I admire your stick-to-itiveness, though. That's for sure. Let's see what. Let's take one more. Let's take one more. We got one more? Yes, ma'am. This is to
Pam Foster.
Hi, Pam.
I was wondering how you bring more families back to the Catholic Church.
Whoa, you got to just be a walking saint. You know, I used to hear that. People would say to me, I don't want to talk the faith. I want to live the faith. And people see through my actions how good the faith is. And I say, you know, I'm in my 50s. I'm waiting for somebody to come up to me and say, excuse me, Ray, you know, I've been watching you all these years. You're such a saint. I really want to know what it is. I just want one person to say, why? Because I'm human and I don't live a saintly existence as I should. Two things. Don't force it. You pick up the cues real quick when somebody doesn't want to be forced, when they don't want to hear it. And a lot of us feel guilty because we figure we got to talk the faith when we got the opening. Don't force it. That's the first thing. They know how you think of life, especially if they're people close to you. They know exactly how you look at these things. Secondly, ask questions. You know, if somebody says something like, well, I just don't think the church should be telling people what to do with their bodies, you might say, is it a child? Do you think it's a child? In other words, you're not going to defend the church. You're going to make them defend what they're saying. Well, yes, I think it's a child. Well, when does it become a child? You see what I'm saying? You're not just immediately going, so you think it's okay then to kill somebody in a womb? We have to do this in psychology. I do this in my office. People say all kinds of things to me, and I have to sit and nod. It could be nonsense. It could be morally reprehensible, but I have to sit and try to get inside their head. Find out what is it that you have against the Catholic Church. Why are you thinking this way? Where is the anger coming from? Where is the rejection? Go after the questions. Now, it's easy enough to talk about stuff. Let's act it. I always pick somebody from the front row here. Young lady, you are going to be my co-star.
Okay, thank you.
Your name?
My name is Mary Masseria.
Mary, this is yours.
Okay.
Now, you turn this way so we can see you.
Okay.
You are my wife. Mary, it's the morning. I want coffee. We've been married 12 years. I'm asking for coffee. Are you ready? Are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Hey, Mary, we got any coffee? 30 seconds goes by. I got no response. Mary, did you make any coffee this morning?
You need to be patient. It doesn't work.
Mary, I can't wait. I got to be at work. Why isn't the coffee on?
You know what? We've been through this before, and this doesn't work. Why don't you try it the way when you first met me? When you were very kind and you knew me. You wanted to get to know me. Why can't we go back to that?
We don't have to go back to then. I just asked for a cup of coffee. Would you please get me a cup of coffee?
If you ask me nice, I will be happy to give it to you.
Mary, I'm not a 5-year-old. What do you say? How do you ask nice? Okay, Mary, fine. May I please have a cup of coffee, Mary?
That is so much better.
Now, thank you, Mary. You notice the problem here. Look what happened. She treated me like a preschooler. How do you ask nice? That's what you say to a preschooler, right? I should have been treated like a preschooler. I didn't use the most basic of manners with this woman who is my wife. I see this in marriages all the time. The person who gets the least manners is the spouse. Everybody else get treated nice. The woman will be in a grocery store and someone comes up to her, your husband is the nicest guy to work with. The other ladies love him. You must be so pleased at home. We're jealous of you. And she's thinking, yeah, well, I'm jealous of you too. Manners. We pound it into little preschoolers, but with ourselves, we follow the law of psychological inertia. Oh, I told her I loved her on our wedding day. I don't know if I have to be nice since then. She knows I love her. Simple, basic, please, thank you, excuse me. If I would have immediately asked, Mary, honey, would you please get me a cup of coffee? I almost guarantee you, even in a bad marriage, she would probably be more likely to get me a cup of coffee. And in my own self-interest, probably the best thing I should do. Coming up, we have Marcus Grodi. Sitting next to me, you're going to see how tall that man is. He is a long time friend, host of The Journey Home here on EWTN, a very popular, very helpful program. I'm delighted to have Marcus. Marcus is going to add some intelligence to some of the things I say. Stay with us here on Living Right with Dr. Ray. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
I don't think a lot of us converts even recognize the psychological issues that are there that we bring with us as baggage on our journey into the church.
I'm really stubborn, even to myself. I don't like to admit that I'm wrong. Even to myself, it's hard for me to admit it out loud, but it's even harder for me to admit that I'm wrong inside.
Here on Living Right with Dr. Ray, a very special friend, special guest, Marcus Grodi, host of The Journey Home here on EWTN. I'll tell you, a show that I started watching way back, way back when you were...
Back when you were 5?
Well, I was 5, you were 37. Yeah, I watched that. Marcus, thank you so much.
Yeah, that's great to be here.
You got to tell the folks just briefly how you and I had our first contact, unbeknownst to both of us.
Well, we were in college together, though we didn't know it, right? Although I guess Guarendi and Grodi were probably close in the list whenever they would, student lists. But I was in a fraternity, and I do remember Ray, but it wouldn't be appropriate to say on television. But when he wanted to be a part of our fraternity, we had a much higher standard. Is that the right?
Yeah, I was voted like a 94-2 out. You were with the cool guys. I was not with the cool guys. He lived probably not more than 50 feet from me for 3 years.
That's right.
For 3 years. You cheated off me a lot during school. Okay, now, Marcus, I'm a shrink. You typically deal with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds
I know
of
I'm
folks.
bigger than you are. Is that what you're talking about?
It's subliminal, yes. I'm glad
I
you
mean, the
picked that
shrink
up.
part.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So you deal with all kinds of people who look at the Catholic Church. They either accept it or they reject it. Many of them say, I can't believe what I found. And the arguments win them over, and the information wins them over, and their heart moves. I'm a shrink. There's got to be psychological struggles for some of those folks. This isn't just all right, I can just leave it all behind me. I'm totally happy where I am.
It's interesting. I've written a couple novels about conversion, and one of the reasons for writing fiction about conversions is when you do the Journey Home program and a person condenses why they become Catholic in 30 minutes or 45 minutes, or even when they write, let's say, a biography on the conversion, what doesn't get expressed is the emotional turmoil, the psychological turmoil, the relational turmoil that can happen in a conversion process. And honestly, I don't think a lot of us converts even recognize the psychological issues that are there that we bring with us as baggage on our journey into the church.
Do you see it later?
Maybe, hopefully by grace as we grow in virtue to recognize that it isn't always their fault, that some of it's mine on issues of family and marriage.
Give me the big things as you see it. The big top of the list psychological struggles.
Well, a few. Especially we deal with men who are in positions of leadership.
From where they were coming into the church.
So they were in leadership, either in ministry, missionaries, educators. And in that environment, let's assume they had a deep relationship with our Lord Jesus and they had a conversion then, before they became a pastor. In that environment, they rose to a level of leadership. If we take our Lord's parable about don't take the front row at the wedding, take the back seat until you're invited forward. Well, in their particular life, they were invited up and they gained leadership. And a part of that, let's don't take the most negative in terms of feeding ego, but that in a positive sense, they began recognizing their gifts and their ability and their ability to preach and to proclaim and to lead. And then in the process, by the gift of grace, their mind is awakened to the beauty of the church. Well, let's face it, when you come into the church, you don't start at the top.
You're a much smaller part of a large whole.
You may have been a bishop. You come into the church, you're a layman. Even if you were single pastor outside the Catholic Church, just because you believe that God called you to the ministry as a Protestant does not necessarily mean that that calling was the calling to priesthood or to the diaconate. And part of the problem is that the Protestant understanding of ordination is different than the Catholic understanding of ordination. And one of the biggest differences is in the Protestant world, individualism is very much a part of the faith. What has God called me to do? How am I saved? And often we would preach that way.
Sure.
This is what you need to do to be saved. And when I don't want to mention the particular evangelist, but when I worked for a large evangelization association, people would go to a football field and come down and then say the Jesus prayer, and they've arrived. As an individual, where was the church in that? Where is ordination? Where were the sacraments? And often that is not as central to the faith outside the Catholic Church as it is inside. In the Catholic Church, ordination is not something an individual hears and then follows and then maybe the bishop gives a rubber stamp. It's a mutual call because you're being called as a part of the body of Christ. In the Catholic Church, we are not saved only as individuals. We are saved as a part of the body.
I oftentimes tell folks in my office, if you have a great conversion experience, you may be morally changed. You're a new person in your beliefs and your morals. But that personality that you shaped all those years follows you into your conversion. If you were an irascible sort before you became a Christian, well, you're going to be a Christian and you still got a lot of irascibleness in you.
Yeah.
And what you're saying is that, it's especially for us guys, we're achievement oriented. And if where I was a high level of achievement, I come into the Catholic Church where, again, I'm sort of diffuse into the body.
Yeah,
That's
especially when you think about it, a man who's gone through seminary, gone through the different levels of leadership in a Protestant denomination, maybe risen to a level of senior pastor, now he's in his 50s, and in that process discovers the beauty of the Catholic Church, and in the process discovers that his Protestant sacraments are not.
Ouch.
And he's every Sunday still in the pulpit, realizing inside.
You had that struggle.
Yeah, I did. And then at some point, a couple issues. Number one, I'm going to have to decide, do I continue in this pulpit, whether I become a Catholic or not? Because I realized that my ordination, the guy that ordained me had no authority to ordain me. You know, who ordained him? Who ordained him? And it's so you realize that, and then there's a lot of layers. How am I going to support my family? What about my vocation? What about my marriage? But on top of that, what about the person that I am?
In the straight world, we'd call that what happened to your self-image.
Yeah.
How do you readjust that?
Yeah. Well, many, and this is what the Coming Home Network does, and standing beside men and women on the journey, the problem is that all of us in this room, how many of us face up to ourselves anyway?
I don't like looking at that.
Yeah, I mean, we don't. And so when all of a sudden, when you're in your 50s, your whole career is put, your whole image of who you are. And it wasn't that what I was doing was bad. I was defending the Lord Jesus. I was proclaiming the Lord Jesus to men and women, bringing them into faith. But I realized, whoa, now there's a tension there because you discover the beauty of the Catholic Church, and you know you got to be there. People will tell my wife and I, you must have been so courageous to give up your career and come into the church. And my wife would say, it would almost have been more courageous not to do that once we discovered the beauty of the church. That's the church. You've got to be home in the church. But in the process, you rediscover who you are. And I do believe that, sadly, one of the last things for many people coming into the church that they address is spirituality. Often, non-Catholics don't realize to what extent their traditions have very low spirituality. It's an intellectual surrender to Jesus Christ. He's my Lord and Savior. And now my goal is to make other converts. As Catholics, we recognize our whole life is growing in union with our Lord Jesus. You know, virtues and vices and dealing with the surrender of who we are as ourselves and understanding the transformation of our character in the life of Jesus Christ. That often isn't one of those issues that you talk about on the journey into the church. You're dealing with doctrine, structure of the church. Okay, I understand purgatory. I understand we don't worship Mary. You deal with that. Okay, this is the church, the authority of Peter and the Union Magisterium. Okay, I'm a Catholic. You're not a Catholic. Your name might be on the line. But really understanding the surrender of being a Catholic
You brought
takes
up
a long
a
time.
fascinating point. We were getting made up, basically. And I just want to say she worked a lot longer on you. Okay. She was putting mine on with a paint roller. You said that this idea of, okay, I struggled where I was, and I saw things that didn't sit, didn't hold together logically. Okay, I come into the Catholic Church, I'm excited, I'm ecstatic, I've got the honeymoon rush, and then you see the humanness also among its members, and you said that was something they had to tamp down?
Yeah, and I'm wondering, you as a psychologist may have another word for this, but I'm thinking all of us, a certain part of our lives are living in a zone of acceptance amongst family and friends. And some of those friends we can talk to about things we see wrong in life or in the church. But a lot of those people, the way we survive is in that zone.
You avoid this stuff.
But we learn to live. And so when let's say a Protestant minister starts to discover the beauty of the church or maybe the problem of Protestantism, there aren't always a lot of people in his zone of acceptance that he can talk to, which is why the Coming Home Network exists, is to give them people to talk to. But what we've also found is once they work through that and they come into the church and they look at the beauty and they land and they love what they see, they start seeing that the church has some warts, some things we don't quite get. And what often happens is once you're into the church and you have a whole new zone of acceptance and people you've accepted into it, you again arrive at a position that, you know, I don't like some of the things I see. Now who do you talk to? And that can have a psychological, you know, do I admit that I still have a problem with Mary? or that I understand intellectually that.
You're a convert. You're supposed to be 100% fully in.
You got a TV show.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly right.
I mean, there you go. So you all of a sudden find yourself, even when you're a Protestant, hiding problems you had as a Catholic. It's dealing with stuff. And the point is that conversion isn't a one-time thing. Conversion is a lifelong surrendering, growing. St. Francis de Sales and Augustine both said it. The three most important virtues of our life are
humility, humility, and humility. And I'm very proud of that.
Yeah.
For me. My dear friend, one amazingly thoughtful guy, Marcus Grodi, and I have to tell you, you use those psychology words pretty well. You obviously studied off of some of my blue books in Case Western Reserve, and you remembered that stuff. Marcus, always a pleasure to visit with you. Thank you. Thank you. One of the neat things about being a shrink, you try to understand people's heads, but sometimes you fall prey to the temptation to mess with their heads. I will be at a party and someone will say something, and I, in all psychological innocence, will respond, "That's very interesting. I've often wondered why people think that." Or I do this, "Well, I think there's a problem here." We have a real child psychologist coming up, one that if you meet at a party, you could be a little nervous. Do you have brothers and sisters?
Quite a few.
How many?
I have 5 brothers and 4 sisters.
5 brothers and 4 sisters. So, how many still at home?
I only have 7 at home.
Okay, 7 at home. Of those, where do you rank in getting in trouble?
Number 1.
Number 1. Are you far and away number 1, or are you, it's kind of in a neck-and-neck race for number 1?
I'm like a mile ahead of everybody else.
Mile ahead of everybody else. What do you do to be a mile ahead of everybody else?
Well, it's just me. If somebody asks me something, I'm normally sarcastic.
Okay.
Or my little sister says something, like I'll roll my eyes because it's so stupid, or I kind of glare at people without even realizing it.
So it seems that the main reason you get in trouble is attitude or mouth?
Aren't they the same thing?
Well, apparently you can show attitude without saying a word, can't you?
Yes.
Show me how you do it. Oh, that's a good one. What do you call that? Your glare?
My mom calls it my death glare.
Your death glare, that's what your mom calls it. All right, when you get in trouble, what happens? Why can't you just look at your parents and say, well, they're wrong. They're getting me in trouble, but I really don't deserve to be in trouble. That's their problem. They really don't know how to be good parents. What goes on when you get in trouble?
Normally they're right. I don't know. I'm really stubborn, even to myself. I don't like to admit that I'm wrong. Even to myself, like, it's hard for me to admit it out loud, but it's even harder for me to admit that I'm wrong inside.
Somebody else.
Yeah.
Especially a mom and dad.
Yeah.
What's the worst trouble you ever been in?
I was on blackout or grounded for 3 months.
Wait a minute. Now, for a second there, sweetheart, I thought you said 3 months. What did you really say?
3 months.
3 months?
I think it was like 65 days.
Why didn't you get off blackout? Why didn't you do what you needed to do to be nice and cooperative and contrite? Are your parents that unreasonable?
No, it's not that I did was wrong, but every single time, like the day before I was this close to getting off, I would do something stupid. And it happened over and over and over again.
What do your brothers and sisters think of this? They look at you and what do they say?
Like my brothers, they're always trying to tell me, Mary, think straight. Come on, Mary, use your brain. I don't know. It's just like, I will, until that moment, and then I mess up.
What takes over?
I don't know. I'm just stubborn, and I just don't think. I really don't.
I think she thinks real well. Would you say that somebody like this would have a poor self-image, or would you say they have a realistic sense of what's going on? I look at this and I think, well, that young lady has a lot of insight. I'm not sitting there thinking, oh my, oh, she thinks she's terrible, isn't that bad? Something must be going on in that home to make her feel that way, because I wish more of my clients had that kind of insight, which is, yeah, I do that stuff. Yeah, I am stubborn. But isn't it interesting, though? She says, I don't like to admit I'm stubborn to anyone. And then she says it on national television. The cameras make you do all kinds of things you wouldn't otherwise do, huh? Well, you've heard the real psychologist. You've heard the psychologist on TV. What has been spurred in you? Sir, your name?
Ted.
Yes, Ted.
I think she's looking for attention in that large family. I think she wants to be noticed more.
So you think she's acting up to mark her spot?
Right.
This is what I am known for. I'm the bad one. I'm the one who carries on.
Yes.
Now, how'd you pick that up?
Because she's really a nice, pleasant young lady.
Well, on camera.
Yes, on camera, okay? And if she could do that on camera, she could do that in real life. But there's something that says she wants to be noticed more.
Okay, she wants to be noticed more. Or you could say, she wants more to do what she wants to do. And she recognizes that.
That's true, yes.
Okay. All I know, in a big family like that, it's easier to fly below the radar. You know, you notice that. Well, thank you, Ted. I appreciate that. Any other comments before we move on? It's real quick. All right, we got a young lady over here. Oh, gee, another real child psychologist. Hold that up there, sweetheart, all the way to your mouth.
Maybe it could, also another reason would be because she's trying to test your patience.
She wants to test the parents' patience. Just how far will they go before they snap? Well, I have 10 children. With my first child, I could go about a month before I snapped. With my 10th child, I can go about 6.2 seconds. You know, I start to twitch, and it happens. How old are you, honey?
14.
14, so you relate to Mary. And you had that look on your face like, that's why I would do it. Not that I'm a psychologist or anything. When we come back, stay with us. Father Larry Richards is going to give us something you don't want to miss. The morality, the Catholic teaching of aging parents and how to do right by those aging parents. Stay there on Living Right with Dr. Ray.
The purpose of life is to lay down your life for others. It's not about me, me, me. It's always about thee, thee, thee. And again, that begins with the family.
You don't win arguments with somebody who doesn't want to hear what you have to say. All you do is you make them dig their heels in even tougher. Who has true wisdom about living right? The Catholic Church or modern, oftentimes ever-shifting ideas? I'm Dr. Ray for Catechism Wisdom. Also with me, Father Larry Richards. Father Larry is pastor of St. Joseph's Church, Bread of Life Community in Erie, Pennsylvania, and a man who has been around the country many, many times.
Many times.
We caught you traveling through, Father Larry. Exactly. Let me read you what the Church says.
Please, Dr. Ray.
This is becoming of real relevance to me. This is section 2218.
Because he's getting old.
Yes. The fourth commandment reminds grown children of their responsibilities toward their parents. As much as they can, they must give them material and moral support in old age and in times of illness, loneliness, or distress. I've got my life to live, Father, you know. I think my mother can take care of herself. I'm busy. I'm a busy professional. I do things. Nobody would fault me if okay, I'll send her a check once a month. I'll send her a check. I'll get her good living arrangements.
All life is about relationship, and if you can't deal well with your parents, then it's their blood inside of your veins, huh? And so what you need to do, of course, and it's a shame that even the fourth commandment has to command us that we honor our father and mother. The Catechism quote says to remind us that you take care of the ones who gave so much for you and took such great care of you.
What if they didn't?
Well,
what if they
again-
were difficult or obnoxious or dysfunctional?
I always say, look in the mirror. You know,
Yeah,
you're the
okay.
same reality. You know, none of us are perfect. Our parents weren't perfect. You and I aren't perfect. And so when God calls us to love, we can be so lovey-dovey to people we don't really know.
That's easy.
But it's so hard to be loving towards the people in our
12-year-old boy in
family.
Borneo I love.
Exactly. I had no idea what that reference is, but go ahead.
What, in the Catechism or the 12-year-old boy in
I
Borneo?
know the Catechism cover to cover, but the next
So I
one.
tell folks, I said, I love billions of people. It's the ones really in close to me, like mom and
Exactly.
dad.
Absolutely. Good.
But I'm an independent person, Father. I have a life to live. I can't. How much do they want of me?
It all comes back to the purpose of life is to lay down your life for others. It's not about me, me, me. It's always about thee, thee, thee. And again, that begins with the family. And I always say when people struggle with their parents or different things, and Father, you know, they were mean to me when I was young or different things, I say, you do it for love of Jesus. So you go in there and say, Jesus, I do this because I love you. And then you go more than that. You look at Jesus inside of them because Jesus Christ is inside of
My
them.
mother is, but she's so difficult and she's so opinionated and she's always, not my mother, I'm just
I was
using
just
this
going
as
to
an
say,
example.
I know where you got
Sorry,
it from
Mom.
now.
I'll get a call right after this. How much do I have to tolerate?
How many times Jesus said you have to forgive how often? And I think that's always what it comes down to.
I want to go with what the apostle said, 7.
Exactly. And he said, not 7, but 70 times 7. And purposely, that's what Christ did, isn't it? When we put him on the cross, he said, Father, forgive them. So sometimes it's just coming back to this forgiveness thing and saying, you know, the past we can't do anything about, but we can do a lot about the future.
Well, what about a parent who is certainly not incapacitated, mind is clear, and she can't really live on her own anymore. Now, I, as an adult child, you know, I've got kids, I've got a life. Mom would have to go into some kind of living arrangement, and do I have to take her?
I think you do, if you can. I mean, that's the point. It'll cramp my style, I hear, Father. I say, excuse me, her and your father's style was cramped when they had to change your diapers, when they had to teach you how to walk, and they had to do this stuff. I say, now it's your turn.
My mother-in-law has Alzheimer's, and she was with us for 2 years. I watched my wife and my kids deal with her, sometimes when she punched them, sometimes when she tried to get out of the house. And I watched my kids actually become more patient, more understanding, even though that wasn't the grandma they knew.
Isn't it the reality for all of us? Love is shown most when love is hard.
Could you say that again?
I will. I'll say that again. Love is shown most when love is hard.
But I like easy. I like easy.
That's
it's so
your
much
problem,
more
Doctor.
pleasant.
One of them, anyway.
One of the nice things about this catechism wisdom is, God willing, most of us will be old. And then we'll be the ones who will revel and gain strength in what our own children have to give for us. The culture says, lead your own life, do what you want, don't get too inconvenienced. The wisdom of the church says, that is your mother, that is your father. God gave them their own commandment. That's how important they are. For Catechism Wisdom, I'm Dr. Ray. As always, Father Larry with me. You know, that guy teaches with an iron glove wrapped in velvet. He doesn't compromise the truth, but yet he gives it to you in such a way that you have to take it in over and above your defenses. I had a friend. I grew up with him and his mother for many, many years. She became very incapacitated. He built her an add-on to his home with his own hands. And he said, I'm going to take care of my mother. And for close to 7 years, he took care of her. She was so incapacitated. She died at 65 pounds. For the last 2 to 3 years, he carried her to the bathroom. He bathed her. He fed her. He took care of her in a heroic way beyond anything I've seen in most people. My friend is an atheist. And I remember when his mother died, I said, Dave, I know you don't believe, but I got to believe somewhere God is keeping real close eye on what you did. And he said to me, I hope so. Senior Moments is a part of the program where we ask for email from around the country. We love getting them. We invite them. Let me read you this one. This comes from Susanna, and she's from California, Hayward, California. Dear Dr. Ray, in October 2006, I said grace after dinner for the first time after 10 years of imposed silence at the home of my daughter and her atheist husband. I was asked to leave the house 2 days later by my son-in-law. For 2 years, I have not seen my grandchildren. This winter, they are planning a trip to the area. They live out of the area. Any suggestions? Well, my first one, don't say grace. I read between the lines. I think what she was saying was, I'm trying to infuse some kind of religion into their life or my grandchildren's life, and she pushed hard. And she was hoping that somehow, some way, what she did would, if not move her atheist son-in-law, at least plant a seed in the kids. All admirable, almost totally futile. You saw what happened. They looked at her like, we didn't give you permission to say grace, and this is not the way we're raising our children. And so they reacted very strongly, horridly overreacted. Basically said, if that's the way you're going to talk, you cannot visit our children. Well, she's getting a chance here to recoup. I think what she'd best do, keep her religion to herself, ask them a lot about themselves, sow a genuine interest in their lives and what they're doing, make no comment that even smells like religious and moral judgment. Don't do it. Okay? You are there just to immerse yourself in them and how they're living and the children. You got another chance. See what else we got here. This comes from, where'd this come from? Cheryl, Alabama. My husband and I are both Catholics, married 38 years. We both attended Catholic school through 8th grade. My faith is openly strong, his not so. He completely stopped going to church and being a KFC, Knight of Columbus, after all the priests were exposed as sheltered pedophiles. And now with our new pope, he claims he's not going to listen to anything he says. Nothing I say helps. In fact, we fight when the subject comes up. I no longer ask him to go to church with me, and he doesn't attend. This is affecting our marriage badly. You don't win arguments with somebody who doesn't want to hear what you have to say. All you do is you make them dig their heels in even tougher. The advice I give to spouses in this situation, your only chance is that person has to see, because of your faith, that you are easier to live with, more giving, more sacrificing, and kinder. You don't do that, I don't care how often you tell them you go to church. And I don't care when they see you coming back from confession or praying your rosary. It has got to be in how you treat them. They've got to see that this Catholic faith has changed you. However subtle. But you cannot say, I'm going to grab my husband by the throat and say, you got to believe and you got to come to church with me now. Let's go. I can give you the best arguments in the world for the faith, And if you don't want to accept them, you'll tune me out so fast. And you know what will tend to happen? If that's the Catholic Church right there, I'm standing here. I don't want to go toward her. You start pushing on me and arguing, and we fight like she says. Here's what I do. Hardest part is to change who we are, but it's probably the most successful way to change those closest to us. Once again, I got to do what I do at the end of the programs because, now you guys don't, please, I don't want to have to give you M&Ms. I'm going to clap for you because you have made so much of the show. Without you, no show. They can get a lot of people to do this up here. We can't get you. So thank you very much. What did we learn today? Well, we found out if you don't discipline your kids, the world will, and you don't want the world to discipline your kids because the world doesn't love your kids like you love your kids. You can discipline your kids 25 times, and you'll kiss them the 26th time. The world, if it has to discipline them 3 times, is going to say, I don't want anything more to do with you, buddy. Do what you have to do now in the context of love. We found out that deteriorating marriages get to the point where people don't like each other. They just don't even treat each other nice. Force yourself to be half what you liked this person at one time. At one point, you were good to each other. Conjure some of that up if you want to at least begin to salvage the marriage. Father Larry says, honor thy father and mother. That's what God says. Well, that basically means that we got to maybe tolerate more from them. You don't have to put your face there to get slapped every time somebody's being nasty. But God's calling you to do this because no matter how bad you think they raised you, they still were put in that position. Well, once again, I want to thank you so much for being with me. Marcus Grody, my dear, dear friend who came and gave us all kinds of thoughts about the whole psychological ramification of conversion. And there's a lot of it there. I see it in my clients when they open up and talk. They're bringing a personality with them. So, until next time, on Living Right with Dr. Ray, walk with God. You got kids, hold them tight by the hand. Next time on Living Right with Dr. Ray, how do you select a college that supports your Catholic values? Rich Gisone, president of Walsh University, will be here. Father Larry Richards talks about, do I give or do I meet my needs? What does the Catechism say? And our real psychologist, 12-year-old Liz, talks about TOOD. Join us then.